Hello and welcome. We're halfway through this term's Global Journalism Seminar Series, and this week we're turning to podcasting. Between 2020 and 2021, the number of podcasts on Spotify doubled to 4.4 million shows. Revenue recorded by IAB between 2018 and last year increased by 192% to 1.4 billion US dollars. By 2024, that figure is projected to reach over 4 billion. But it's an industry with a big language representation gap. As with much of podcasting, exact figures are hard to find, but somewhere between 30 and 50% of all podcasts are recorded in English, a language spoken by only 17% of the world. Our guest today, Carolina Guerrero, saw that gap in 2011, and in 2012, she launched a Spanish language podcast. 10 years on, her company has grown from 2 employees to 30. They've produced almost 300 episodes, attracting over 40 million downloads across 2 shows, Radio Ambulante and El Hilo, and they've won a Gabriel Garcia Marquez Prize in Innovation, among other awards. Carolina is joining us from New York today, and I'm excited that you all get to experience how passionately and openly she speaks about not just this medium, but the challenges of starting a media company. So welcome, Carolina.
Hi, thank you so much for I'm glad to be here again.
It's great to have you.
Very excited to be with you all.
Yeah, it's a big morning in the US for you, with the midterm election results rolling in. I won't ask you to turn into a political commentator, but we did think that we would start with this clip from a recent episode of El Hilo to give people a taste of the work that you are doing on your show. And let's have a listen.
Marta Lucía no podía creerlo.
Cuando yo llamo a mi hermano y a mi hermana, me salen con esa historia y yo me quedé como si me hubieran sacado ayer de armero.
No, that's the wrong thing. Let's try that again. Let's try that one more time.
El voto latino se ha vuelto más relevante que nunca en estas elecciones de medio término, y el trabajo para conquistar a estas comunidades va mucho más allá que un anuncio publicitario en español.
News media, along with the Democratic Party, has convinced millions and millions and millions of us that Republicans only want to see white men in power, that we are a bunch of racists.
La pelea por su voto en el Valle del Río Grande, en Texas, donde tanto los votantes como los candidatos son mayormente latinos, confirma más que nunca que este grupo no obedece a ningún estereotipo.
Los dos partidos han tenido que hacer más campaña para los latinos.
Being Latino has given me an appreciation for the American ideal of e pluribus unum, that out of many backgrounds and experiences, we are one people.
Well, interesting. Tell us how, with an audience so focused around Latin America, how interested are they in US politics?
Very much. El Hilo it's a podcast that we recently launched. It was launched like 2.5 years ago. Still, we already published over 130, I think it's 136 episodes. It's a weekly podcast, a bit newsy, that goes, adds context and go in depth on the weekly story of the story most important in the week. Usually we talk about Latin America, but we also cover the United States because there are many Latinos here. This relationship between the Latinos in the US and Latin Americans is very tight. There are many. I'm sorry, my dog is making noises.
Right. We love having animals.
Yeah. So this relationship is very important, I think, in both ways, and also like politics in the United States are complicated as well. And I think El Hilo does quite a great job at explaining every week things that that are not necessarily like, because we do it like on a full episode, those things are not necessarily found in media in Latin America. We take the time to explain, we go and find local voices, local reporters, talk to them and try to find a bigger picture and understand the layers of this. And I think in the United States, I am one of those Latinas who vote here, but also it's what we did on this episode was to expand and try to explain what role did the Latino vote play and why this was important. We always try to add to use the space of El Hilo to bring something that you can't find somewhere else. We know that most people cover the news, more media organizations cover the news on one angle. We try to go on a different one. And when we launched Radio Ambulante 10 years ago, the podcast that helped us create this production company, this production house, we knew that political borders are real, but like linguistic and cultural borders are very fluid. And we consider the United States a Latin American country just because there are almost like 60 million Latinos here. So it's something that we can't divide. And the interest in the United States is always like growing. It's only growing.
It's brilliant. And I've heard Radio Ambulante, the first show that you produced, I've heard it referred to as this Latin American life. Does it bother you when people make that comparison?
Oh, no, not at all. Actually, when we launched Ambulante, we came with the idea in 2011 and then launched a year later after working. But we were based in California at the time and had this idea. We're like building the project, finding a brand, a name, building, like create a website, logo, all that, trying to learn how to produce audio journalism. Yeah. And when people ask us in the United States, what do you want to do? We are like, oh, this is like This American Life in Spanish and regional. It was like the elevator pitch, and it helped us to explain what we wanted to do because it came from listening to these incredible radio shows that we admired. And Daniel, who I co-founded the project with, Daniel Arcon, who's also my husband now, we were always listening to a show and then complaining, oh, there is why we can't find something like that, this long form audio personal journalism, well investigated, rigorous, like sophisticated on the narration, on the storytelling. Why can't we find this in Spanish and from Latin America? So one day we decided to create it, and that was easy for us. It got complicated when we were trying to explain the project to people, to our colleagues and friends in Latin America who wanted to be part of the project and pitch stories. Yeah. So that became more like, oh, we need to explain what this is about because it's not a format that was that existed in Spanish. I'm happy to report that 10 years later, we have heard people referring to This American Life. It's like Latina, like Radio Ambulante, but in English. and we have received some, like, we have seen tweets about that, or people from Latin America recommending Radio Ambulante using that. So I hope that they don't bother by this.
That's brilliant. I wanted to ask about the pandemic and how that's affected both of your shows. Did it impact your numbers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it seems that it was like in the whole, I mean, mostly in podcasts like ours that was weekly podcast. But the pandemic hit before we launched El Hilo. At the time, we were only publishing Radio Ambulante. Radio Ambulante was publishing 24 episodes every year on seasons of like 6 months seasons, and it's more long form narrative. We're gonna talk about it a bit later, but I think it depended a lot about, on the routines that people had, like you commute, you just listen to a podcast every Tuesday, or this kind of stuff. And I think we all lost our routines and we were like busy at home. At least in our case, I also got disconnected from many of my podcasts. At the time, I became like really obsessed with news podcasts. So those podcasts were doing great during the pandemic, and they were so necessary. So that was one of the things that were challenging, but we are like, but Ambulante also, we have made we look at the numbers carefully, and every week, really, like all the time, we analyze data all the time. But also we invest a lot. We have invested a lot on creating and building a strong community around our podcast. So one thing that we saw was decreasing our metrics, but we made efforts on other spaces to grow and strengthen our community, and that worked very well. And I think people thank us for that. And because we are part of that community, we also did it, like we also were grateful that we had this community. And for example, we launched these Zoom parties, dancing parties with DJ on Zoom, that were fun. But, they were so beautiful. Really sounds like, now that everything is open, sounds a bit ridiculous, but we were like dancing on Zoom like this with these DJs, people dancing with their cats, their grandparents, their cactus, So we did a lot of like, the counterpart was like making sure that we proved that we had a community. And I think in podcast, this is one of the most valuable things. And the numbers have recovered a bit since then. I think we're close to get back to the same numbers now.
Brilliant. That's really good news. You mentioned there the role of long form narrative and the narrative arc in podcasting. So I want to play another sample, this time from Radio Ambulante, but I should probably set it up a little bit. This is from the episode The Lost Children. And in the first half of the episode, we've met Martha Lucia, who lost her son Sergio in the historic mudslide in Colombia. And David, your husband, has walked us through the horrifying story of loss, and then we get to this point. So let's listen together.
Marta Lucía no podía creerlo.
Cuando yo llamo a mi hermano y a mi hermana, me salen con esa historia y yo me quedé como si me hubieran sacado ayer de armero. Muy mal me sentí.
Se sentía como en un callejón sin salida. Estaba muy confundida. Llamó entonces a Yolanda, su amiga de toda la vida. Necesitaba, otra vez, desahogarse. Y esto va a sonar inverosímil, pero no lo es. Yolanda también tenía algo que contarle. Que una amiga en común que se llama Luz Ángela, en un viaje a New Orleans 6 meses después de la avalancha, entró un día a un almacén Benetton, y cuando uno de los vendedores la oyó hablar en español, se le acercó y le preguntó:
¿Tú eres latina? Y ella le dice, sí, soy colombiana. Y él dijo, qué emoción me da conocer a alguien latino, y más de Colombia, porque mi hermano acaba de adoptar un niño de la tragedia y mi sobrino es de allá. Entonces saca la billetera, le muestra la foto y ella le dice, este es Sergio, el hijo de mi amiga Chía.
Según Luz Ángela, intentó pedirle explicaciones al vendedor, pero él se puso evasivo y ya no quiso atenderla más.
So when I was listening to that episode, trying to find the right clip, I knew that this was the clip because all of the hairs on my body were standing on end. And I think that's what a lot of your podcasts do. I probably should ask a little bit about this episode. Do you want to give us any insights and background? And I asked you earlier, did they ever find Sergio? And do you want to let us know what we know?
Yeah, this episode, I'm Colombian, and I was a child when this tragedy happened. That was a dark November. There was another incident in Colombia that marked the history of Colombia, and this is one of them. I think when I heard, actually that is David Trujillo, the producer, and David is much younger than me. I think he's 20 years younger than me or something.
Sorry, David.
No, it's okay. But what is interesting is that he brought this story to us. He pitched the story, and I was very interested in the story because I was a witness. I lived during those days, and even between, if we had like this gap of between us. He was not, like he researched this story. And yeah, so it was a great story for us, for the editors at the time, Camila and Silvia and Daniel. I think just learning as an adult that happened to kids my age or something like that was very like confusing and really heartbroken, and knowing that this happened on trials when a government is not well prepared. I think what we need when we tell a story like this is a powerful voice and a powerful story. No, I mean, the character Marta Lucia has this powerful, very, very sad story, but she also carries the story very well because she speaks very well. I think when you're like producing audio, you need that power and you need to feel the emotions. Once we presented this on a workshop, this story on a workshop, and David asked people to read the text of the transcript with no audio. And then it was, like when you read on the press, right? But then he played the clip. And it's so different when you have the text in front of you than when you listen to the story and the words and the feelings that are like that you can feel. And this is one of those stories that had like it has like he's a great writing. The editors like do a lot of work. They work together. We do a lot of editorial work. The fact checking, it was like it took like a year to produce, if I'm not wrong. And I think it has a great research, a great storytelling, not a happy ending, but some of the characters of the story, someone was like somebody who runs a foundation, and since then they have reunited like some of the families, not as many as they should, but I think when you just remember, when you just use history, but you just tell the story in the present, this you are just transported to this universe on a very well told story, and then you realize that this keeps happening. This keeps happening, even like in Florida or like a month ago, like, I mean, not maybe like the disappearance of the children that keeps happening around the world with like so many people displaced, but it's just like governments are not well prepared. These are emergencies that people should have like prevented. People die, families get separated as a result, and this is the reason why we tell these stories. Just because if you really get like interested in the story and you can't leave the story because it's well told, you just maybe like at the end, what I feel is that this storytelling gets to the head of every person who listens to the story. Is very personal, and at the end, people who take for us are people are who should listen to these stories, and maybe they can think differently later. Sorry, it's very personal, so I take it a bit personal, so I was a bit all over the place with the answer, but
yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. And it's an extremely emotional story. You were telling me earlier that Sergio wasn't reunited with his mother, as far as we know.
yes, yeah, he hasn't.
I'm going to pivot us away from the emotional and into the more dry, rational stuff. Because when I've heard you speak in the past, I've been really blown away by your straight talk on what it's like to start a media company. And anyone who's been on a media startup course or any startup course has been told diversify your revenue sources, and you've really done that in a remarkable way. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about Radio Ambulante's business model and revenue plans?
Yeah, sure. Okay, first of all, I get excited to talk about this just because it's so hard. It's so hard to spend years on this company, like running this company and trying to find something that works. I think the first ingredient, I think we are successful, and the reason why I feel we are successful is because we still look into the future with optimism. So this is like this is the spoiler. but it's really like I think what it has taken is to find our own business model and our own path to make sure that we are at this point. Nothing is guaranteed, but when we created Ambulante, we wanted to produce this, and it was like, oh, we want to do this compelling, like public media content. So we are a nonprofit. Let's create a nonprofit. We really wanted to make it happen, and we thought that the right to do it was creating a nonprofit organization. So we did, but it was like then you are in the United States, then you have to tell people, oh, we cover this. This is a content that we feel that is missing. We are part of the Latinos here. We feel that there is a connection between the two regions, and we're going to produce this in Spanish because this personal journalism doesn't have the same impact if you produce voiceover. The stories, they have to be told in the voice of the characters who lived and experienced these stories. And people were excited. Oh, this is great. It sounds great. Why don't you do it in English? That was the question. No, because precisely what we're trying to do is to reach out to people like us who can't find this content anywhere. And also in Latin America, this format doesn't exist. So it was hard to monetize it at the beginning. It was hard to find grants. It was hard to find sponsors. It was hard to find many things. It had required a lot of resilience, a lot of free work at the beginning, but there was always something that was there. And I think for people who joined our team, we had some co-founders who joined us, me and Danielle at the beginning before launching. Then there were like people who joined the team. Even though we had limited resources, there was this ambition of like creating that we all were convinced that was needed and that had a big potential. But this kind of long audio journalism requires a lot of like editing and time, and time means money. So during the years, it was hard to produce. So what we have done is like, fine, I'm sorry, like this is long, but what we have done is like solve a riddle that has taken years to get there, but like at some point we realized that we couldn't just depend on grants. It couldn't just depend on the investment that we were making, and also we had kids. All of us, we had kids working at Ambulante. We couldn't sacrifice much more of like free work and stuff like that. So we started creating this partnership. So we had these grants that were supporting the whole company, the 100% of the company, and the company was small. We were five people working full time, but really with salaries very significant. Daniel was not even getting paid for years, and a few of us were like just earning nothing. And then we closed this partnership with NPR. They looked at us. They wanted to bring Ambulante to their family of podcasts. They wanted to add Ambulante as the first Spanish language podcast. Right. And we did. We have an actual collaboration, 7 years already in these contracts. That we are very proud of. So we found this mission aligned, this organization that we were aligned on our missions and our views of the future, and basically we have an exclusive distribution deal with them. It's kind of like a sponsorship split, revenue split, but they help us to be sustainable. They don't sustain, NPR doesn't sustain the 100% of the company, but at the time it added 50% of the annual budget and allow us. We were 5 people at the time, so that allow us to grow a bit. Also, they brought all that they had, all the metrics, the knowledge, the support, like the reach, and we learned a lot on the marketing. So with that partnership, we stabilized in 2016 our finances, and since then we launched a little with independently, but we partnered again with 2 years ago with a year ago with Vice News on a similar, more like a production deal. So we have like that, adding also like helping us to support the whole company. We 3 years ago we launched a membership program because we have a very tight community, and we didn't know if we wanted to come and ask for support, but it was obvious that we were not able to grow out of like this. I mean, to really grow, and the community has been amazing.
This is the community that was dancing at parties during COVID, yeah?
I mean, some of them. Yeah, I mean, like people, I think what we do is that we feel that this is a community that we all want to preserve, and people help and do their part. Whoever can support financially, they know that if they support, this content will be free for many other people who can't, most of them who can support. Our promises, we do the best journalists that we can. The next episode will be better than the last one, the best story. We're gonna just try to find those voices. We do our part, and I think everybody does. So these members who support us, some people support us like every month. Some people have supported us in the past, but that membership program is growing and is helping a lot, and it's bringing like 20% of the annual budget at the moment. So now we have like the grants. That is like 1/4 of the budget. We have the partnerships with this media organization that is another 1/4 of the budget. We have a membership program that is under a 1/4 of the budget. And we have also at some point, we always surveyed our audience since day one, and we're learning about these, who listen to us, how to create like better, better content, listen to them, right? Like to the audience. And then, but there was something that was present on this survey that was very odd. And it was like, we have many Spanish learners into our listeners. And that number was growing steady with our metrics, with our survey. So at some point we were like, we know who listen to us, but who are they? And then we did more research. And then at some point we partnered with a technology company and launched Lupa, which is an app that transforms Ambulante's content into very smart lessons for Spanish learners who can like select vocabulary, like slow, like speed, it's very sophisticated. And that's bringing, is not free, but it's bringing like 10% of the annual budget of the company. So that's helping a lot. And then, then we do live shows sometimes, and we sell merchandising that doesn't represent much, but it's fun, So what I'm trying to do now with this business model that works and has worked for us for a few years is that making sure that we want to expand, we still want to grow a bit more. We are now 30 people, which is kind of crazy. And because from 5 in 2016 to 30 now, it's over 30 now, it's really like a bigger company. So we don't want to, I think, grow much on we don't want to make these companies super huge, because we want to continue doing it right. But if we want to stay in business, we want to bring more content in Spanish for listeners who really valorate, they really value what we do. And then for that, we're trying to expand the development area and try to bring more grants, maybe create more partnerships with other media or sponsors to launch series or stuff like that.
Right.
We keep looking at numbers, metrics, listen to the audience, and then think about that, what we can do.
Test, adapt.
Test and adapt, exactly.
If anyone has questions for Carolina, you can put them in the Q&A box. You'll find the function at the bottom of your screen, or fellows downstairs, you can use the WhatsApp tool. And I will come to audience questions in a second. But before I do, you talked a little bit about the team, and I know it's incredibly difficult to keep employees and keep them engaged when it's a small company. What have you learned about managing people over the course of the last decade?
I think that probably what I have learned, what is important is remembering that there are human beings that you work with, and we are all different and have needs, and we all grow, get tired, get excited. So what I think the culture since the beginning has been very, like, we are very straightforward, we are direct, like transparent, direct, have a safe space for people to say how they feel, what they want. I ask people when they come to Ambulante how this milestone, like I don't know, how like this stop, like it's like a, how like your period at Ambulante will help you to reach your mission, if you have one, you
Yeah.
know. But I think I want people to, I want persons who come to Ambulante to bring their own challenges and to make sure that this is a time well invested while you are here. It's still like we finally are like paying market rate salaries, but it has been like an effort, you know. We are and it's growing. I mean, we're growing. We have like equal maternity leave or paternity leave, and certain things that maybe in Latin America are not as common, and the United States for sure are not. We listen to them, and we listen to. At one point, some of my editors and producers told me that we were giving like 15 like days of vacation, and they came to us and say, "Oh, we want 20," and I was like, "Okay, 20 it is," you know. It's just like listening to them, and because we are here all on the same boat. And what I feel is that it's still steady people. It's 10 years or like more than 10 years. We all feel fatigue. I'm managing the company. I'm not the greatest storytelling, and I don't do the craft of the audio, but I have editors who have like been with us since the beginning. Danielle, Camila Segura, Silvia Viñas, who's now the host and EP of El Hilo. And we are now facing that, you know, like, I mean, I think it's 10 years together. What we try to do is, and retention is certainly a big challenge, mostly in a very, in this bold, exciting industry that is podcasting, and Latinos are hot now. Everybody wants to create content for Latinos. So, and we can't compete necessarily with a lot of money, but we can compete with like the same challenge. If you are coming here to just grow on a hierarchy and become, I don't know, there is not as much space as up, but there is a lot of space to build your personal brand, to represent the project, to grow as a producer, and to make sure that you can bring your own stories and what you know, like to have, you have to be like really that reporter with a lot of, that you're hungry to bring those voices and to find it, and we're gonna make sure that this happens. And at some point, people obviously have left our team. In 2027, people left our team. That was a big challenge for a small team of 20. And it's like when people are ready to go, they just come to talk to us, and we just help them in the next stage. And we have been very proud of what they have done next, because at the end, we are a bunch of friends. What I feel now, I mean, having said all this, that it sounds beautiful, what I feel now is that it's challenging for us to create more like job descriptions that are not just filled by a person, or like, for example, these days that our team are traveling, presenting, there are so many things happening, like, and the people are traveling. We had a live show, you know, like we feel that we need somebody taking care of traffic, you know, like these kind of things that are more like, and I'm thinking, how can I do that? Who's the right person to do it? I don't think, you know, I can do that, those like micromanagement anymore. I still do it. But I don't want to do it. And I'm also like not as good as somebody else to do it. And these are the challenges that we're facing now. I think that the good part is that as a team, we face these challenges together. And we try to, I try to explain to my team is that a company is not something that people come and say, oh, I want to give you feedback. And I'm like, thank you so much. But yeah, and I take the feedback that managing a company is something that you do every hour, every day, you know, it's not something that happens one day to the other one. So it's like finding our own path, talking to your team, making sure that they know what you're doing, and that if they don't know, that you can communicate to them, they can ask you to use is key. And this is what I have like learned, I guess, is that we are like working with people.
Do you have the resources in place to take a break?
No, I am supposed to be on a vacation, but it's not working very well. I'm 3 weeks on a vacation, and I have only worked and I was talking to some of my my colleagues yesterday, and it seems that it was not clear, because at the beginning I didn't disappear from Slack. Then I was like, oh, you know, guys, this is not working. I'm going to disappear from Slack. But then I realized that something was kind of like not falling, or like not completely tight. So I came back, and now I need a vacation from the vacation. I'm from like
we'll work on that part.
I need a break. Only we'll take it in January.
That's the next milestone for the company.
I want to stop thinking about work, and it's not working very well. But I'm trying and keep trying.
Yeah. I've got an interesting question here for you from Diego, and I'm not going to mangle your surname, Diego, but he is Colombian American and he's been living in the UK since 2020. And he says this Latin American population is smaller in the UK compared to the US, but it's significant and growing. And he's wondering if there's been any conversations about broadening Radio Ambulante and El Hilo to the other side of the Atlantic and shedding light on the issues and stories of Latin Americans and Latinx communities within the UK.
Actually, Diego, I have good news for you. Like UK is the 1, 2, 3, 4. I have a note here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 countries that listens to Ambulante, and the 5th is Canada. Wow. So we have like this, like many listeners who listen from like overseas. We are listened to from like 100 countries. Just to tell you about the audience, 50% kind of like in both podcasts, a bit more probably in Radio Ambulante, are based in the United States. Like 20, 30% or no, 40% now, like it's like in the Latin America, but we always had listeners in the UK and Canada. And I think, but we don't look like, the truth is that this is good news, but the truth is that as you asked the question, Diego, I don't think we looked into that audience enough as we do with the United States, with the Latinos in the US, maybe because we're based here and our business relationships are here. But we receive donations from many places, like many members are in Europe. And actually we have now a new leader of communities who is a new person who came to a team to really like work with the community. And he came and said, you know what, we have like so many people interested from Latin America. And every time that we do a live event is like at 6 p.m. on this like ET time, New York time, Colombia time, and then those listeners, when you have event at noon, they come from Europe and other sides of the world. So yeah, thank you for reminding me. And we for sure can do better. Actually, Silvia Viñas, the EP and host of Ambulante, lives in London, and also our sign designer Leah lives in Sweden. For sure, we can just invite them to like things to talk, to events, to listening clubs. They will have.
And if anyone has Latinx-based stories from the UK that they think you should be covering, can they send story suggestions?
Oh, absolutely. We cover Latinos everywhere, like really like Latin Americans everywhere.
Brilliant. A question from Monica before I go downstairs to the fellows in the room. Monica says she's a very big fan, and has there ever been a story that impacted you more than you expected it to?
Oh,
that the clip we played.
I will start crying, Monica. Different kind of stories. Not all the stories. The stories, we have a different narrative arc. If everybody watched, Shrek or like any, like Frozen, whatever, like child's movie, like the storytelling is like, they take you there, you're so happy, the character suffers, you're like, so it's not, somebody says like, why do you produce like such sad content? That is not content, it's compelling. It's like, because we want you to put like on the shoes of the characters. We also have like, even like the funny stories have like those moments. So like those stories from Colombia, like the one that we listened to, La Noche Más Larga, I'm not sure if it's translated The Longest Night, about another incident in Colombia. His story like really like touched me as well. It's like when the Palace of Justice in the same 30 years ago was also like, there was like another incident in Colombia that marked the history of Colombia. I was very touched, but these stories, all the stories about like people who lost family members. There is one called La Búsqueda in Argentina, touched me very, very much. Sometimes, there is this story from Argentina called Jonena, produced by Aneris. And like everything that Aneris produces at Ambulante is incredible. And it's about a transgender girl and how her mom goes into this path of like understanding what she needs. And I think that the stories of Ambulante, what I like is that you have like we can talk on these kind of stories you have the personal experience or the family experience that probably we can relate to. You have the legal side of it very well investigated, and also you understand how this works on this country, but how it works somewhere else and how it works in my country. You ask many questions, and also like all these cultural beliefs that can be challenged and need to be challenged also, like sometimes. So those stories, the stories that tells all these, like really like they play with my emotions, because I ask myself questions, and yeah, they really like are very compelling. And finally, I'm gonna mention one that is very, I don't know, is the one that I have listened to the most. It's called Toy Story. Yeah. It's about we have the voice of Carla Suarez, a writer from Cuba who lives in Lisbon, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. It's just so compelling. She has a personal essay about Cuba that is so wonderful. It's just my favorite, I guess.
But on Lupa, can I go and learn some Spanish and listen to it at the same time?
Yeah, or you can download Lupa. I'm adding my...
Definitely. It's on my list, Lupa. I'm going to go downstairs to the seminar room where the journalist fellows are and ask Brett to ask his question. Brett, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I clicked the button, but it didn't work. Hi, Catalina. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for talking with us. I was just wondering, given the runaway success of Radio Ambulante, have you done trainings and or been approached by other non-English language podcasts and startups in order to sort of try to impart some of your knowledge on how to break into this English-dominated market?
Yes. Let me clarify. Your question is if we have trained Spanish language podcast or English language, or like just Spanish language you were talking about?
Not even necessarily just Spanish language, but just non-English language podcasts, maybe startups, podcasts that have been sort of trying to break into the English language dominated market.
Yeah, so since we launched, and because the project was kind of lonely, like a loner podcast 10 years ago in Latin America, and even though we had like less episodes produced, many colleagues from Latin America asked us to teach workshops that we did at the time we did. It was hard for us because at the end we are a production company, and every time you take one editor or one producer from your team to teach at the time, like just losing those 5 days or that week of like training, it was hard. So we stopped, and we realized that we were not able to incorporate that into our business model. And at the time, like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, we wanted to like produce more content, find more stories, bring more resources to travel, and so on. So we created a site of called La Escuela Radio Ambulante. Oh, sorry. My husband just came from a long trip. I have a snack here. If she cries, she's noisy. Sorry. Yeah, I just throw the snack. I'm sorry in advance. So we created this site. We have a website called La Escuela Radio Ambulante, and we started creating these like educational resources for like people who want to do this. Daniel also, like at some point before, he was a novelist and then and a journalist, and he became like, I don't know, savvy, I guess, after like years working at Ambulante. He teaches now. He's a radio teacher at the Colombian University, so he learned how to teach, but that's good. But on the other side, because he teaches all year long, so he doesn't want to teach on the side. But we participate. Now that our team is bigger, many people have been teaching workshops. We have been teaching during the pandemic. We taught many workshops online. That was very, very, very successful. So we're going to continue to do that. We love to transfer our knowledge and not only on the production side, but also on the model, on the business side. It's just like sharing our experiences might be useful for certain people. You can't copy paste a business path, but you can like maybe like get inspired and adapt, to your own company.
Yeah, you really do. I mean, you live by that. So, I mean, I can attest. I've got two questions here that kind of complement each other. One's from Alejandro Fernandez, who's a Colombian living in the US, and the other is from Amy Rosa Arguedas from Costa Rica. And Amy says, you spoke about the fluidity of the linguistics and the cultural borders across Latin America and the US, which is inspiring. But at the same time, Latin America is so diverse in so many ways. And has it been challenging to choose stories that are representative in such a large region? And Alejandro adds, how do you balance North America versus Central versus South America? And how do you feel about the terms Latinx as an American-centric view on us?
Oh, that question is like very controversial. The second the United States. I'm gonna answer that just saying that there are people who want to be identified as Latins. I respect that. I feel Latin American is the way I identify myself when I am asked. But I understand why Latinx, or Latine is another way of people. Some people want to be identified as. Some other people feel that that's unfair, that it doesn't cover everyone. I feel that everyone should decide how they want to be identified as. And I don't have a problem with people using that term that represents some members of the community who are not really, they don't want to be Latina or Latino or Hispanic, and I'm fine with that. So I'm not sure if I have much to add there. And on the first question, can you repeat me the first question again, please? Yeah, the diversity. Yeah. So what we do is that we go behind the story. We don't try to. I think in El Hilo, for example, El Hilo has built on over almost 140 episodes this quilt of the news, the most important news in Latin America in the last 2 years, right? So even if it's newsy, when you listen to a story today about the elections, like for example, last week's Friday's episode about the elections in the US, and you want to learn more, you can go to another episode before that we covered another election in the US, and we're talking about disinformation flying between Colombia and Venezuela to Florida via WhatsApp, so maybe you can learn more and build, understand something. So I think this is like a quilt of pieces that can help to add context and learn more. In Latin America, and we always choose one story, one country, another subject. I mean, they do. It's the editorial team. They do that, but I'm part of I witness those conversations, and we try to diversify, but sometimes you just have to come back to the same Chile again, and in the case of Ambulante, we try to cover and we work with freelancers as well, freelancer producers, and try to cover all type of stories. Sometimes, if we lost, for example, the 3 reporters that we had in the United States, we stopped covering the United States as well. So we try to bring more of those stories. It's hard, but we are not trying to just create this general profile of Latin America. We feel that a well-told story is universal, and I think we want to unpack things that happen to this character in that very particular place, but also it's about the human experience and how people relate to it, maybe having empathy, stop being fearful of your neighbor next door, or learning certain things. And I think we created Ambulante because at some point, people, when you are in the United States, people just refer to Latinos as everybody's the same. And we co-founded this project with 2 people, one Colombian raised in California, Daniel, a Peruvian, grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. I grew up in Colombia. One of the editors grew up in Colombia also. She studied here. The other one was Uruguayan, born in Washington, and so many people. So we wanted to present this diversity from inside the story, and just making sure that this was universal, so people can go back to that. So in Ambulante, it's more the episodes are more evergreen, and we try to cover gender issues, include LGBTQ communities, hopefully we cover those love stories and not, it's not, oh, the LGBTQ, let's talk about this legal case, right? Only legal case and human rights. No, we want to, it's just the human experience and how like families relate, how people react, the good and the bad, and it's just trying to find producers everywhere. That's probably what we're trying to do.
I like that. Remember to tell the love stories. There's very, very short questions here, but a lot of people are asking how can we sign up for those workshops? Is that radioambulante.org?
Yes, so we have done them part of a Radio Ambulante Fest. It's a fest that we launched 2 years ago or 3 years ago and repeated. Now they are becoming part of our membership program. So one of the rewards when people want to join, there is a description, and we are actually editing. We're close to launch our end of the year campaign. Wish me luck. It's like wish us luck. It's like climbing the Aconcagua, and then it's so stressful every day. We have a goal. It's ambitious, like we need it. So what we are adding now these workshops also that are recorded on the as part of the rewards, of the perks for this campaign. Right. And also when we teach these workshops that are online, that we want to continue doing, to continue to do is, so we announce it on social media. Usually we have, it comes that question, Radio Ambulante on Twitter. We are on Instagram.
I am definitely asking that question.
You can sign now to our newsletter. That is amazing because we have a newsletter, and every Friday members of our team recommend things. On Friday also, like they let you know about the episode of the week. Elilo has a newsletter also, a great, that has a summary of news in Latin America, and also like let you know on Friday that there is a new episode and recommends things. But we have great recommendations not related to necessarily to know anything. So via that newsletter we announce when we have workshops, and it's a good way to be informed of everything that we do, live events around the world, in Latin America, and so on, and talks that we do like this and everything.
Okay, good. So Maurizio, sign up to the newsletter and become a member, and you know what to ask for Christmas.
And I guess I need to know, assuming that maybe you are not familiar with Radio Ambulante, it's radioambulante.org is the website, radioambulante.org, and we find that's your starting point to find everything.
Yeah, I'll pop that in the chat. Just before I come to that question, Yussi downstairs had a question for you, and let's see if we can get to Yussi. There we go.
Hello, thank you for a very interesting talk. I wanted to ask about translations. I think you mentioned something like a story works best when it's told in the language of its characters. And I can definitely agree and see the value in that thought. But I'm also wondering if podcasts, especially the ones where there is lots of storytelling and investigation and narrative works taking place, a podcast that is really heavy to produce, could work when translated. I'm from Finland, which is a small language area, and we obviously translate a lot of stuff into Finnish language, but for some reason we don't really do translated podcasts into Finnish language, even though I could see that maybe some podcasts could work, because like you also said, good stories are universal. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. I can tell you our experience translating podcasts, episodes that were successful. Some people, now that there is this boom of the podcast and they want stories from Latin America, they say, oh, why don't we produce this and just translate it? And people think that this is just translating. But in audio, it's not just translating. It's just like producing like another episode. Probably some of you are familiar with the audio production and narrative audio, and it's really like not as easy to produce, because in order to be compelling and really like have the experience of like having intimate, that it really reaches your brain and your ears, it has to be well told. So it has to be, and also if these episodes are long, you want the voice to maybe not having like super heavy accent, or like, things that will really keep you on the story. Is different than press. so some people they just translate and hire actors and create the podcast. What we have done in the past, I'm going to mention one episode that we produced with Radiolab. It's a great podcast in the US. I don't know if you're familiar with it. We produced a story called The Survivors, Los Sobrevivientes. Tells a story about a couple in Cuba. It's an amazing story. We co-produced that story with Radiolab, and Radiolab and the producer work on both versions. Then the English language version is called The Freakies, because they were part of this movement called the Freakies in the 80s. And those versions is like the same story, but it's like different story, like a slightly different story, because they created two versions. And we love that collaborations, and they were complementary, but it was interesting how we both covered Cuba at the same time on slightly different way. Mm-hmm. We did an episode from El Hilo that told the story about Venezuelans who have migrated to Colombia, and this character moving back to Venezuela because there was a crisis, or from Ecuador, I think he was moving back to Venezuela by walking. It was very compelling. Was produced by Mariana Zúñiga from Venezuela. And then we collaborated with Road Translation and NPR, a podcast by NPR, and she created a version for them that told the same story, but his story, the story of the character, but on a new version. So this is a good way to do it. There is something called, or like it's a slang for audio that is called a brain dump. I don't know if you all know that. I didn't know. So I am sorry if it sounds like, so sometimes you just like sit with the producer, with Mariana, for example, and you say, okay, Mariana, tell me the story of I think Orlando is the name of the character. Tell me his story. Tell me what happened. And she tells you the story in English, and you can maybe play some audio clips and voice over it, or like, like do the technique and to do it. I feel it's a pity that some of these stories are not being translated because it's expensive. At some point, we used to subtitle, like as you saw today that Caitlin did this exercise. We used to do it in English. Now we publish on our website translated versions of the script. I think this just needs like money, resources to do it, to be done. But I think it's very valuable because also like we don't speak Finnish, but I'm sure many people would love to learn about, I don't know, like stories like that we, and also like I would love to learn more about stories from Finland too. So
syndication, new revenue, new revenue opportunity coming up. We are running out of time, and so I'm very sorry to those of you in the Q&A who I haven't gotten to, but I would be very remiss in November 2022 not to ask you, Carolina, about That Bird site and Elon Musk, and how is this going to affect your business, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's affecting everyone. I think we don't know what the rules of moderation will be, and we're seeing some of these. I guess what the responsible thing to do is we're looking into that now. What happened with all the content that we have built on Twitter for like 11 years. I personally live on the Twitter universe. Don't tweet a lot, retweet a lot, get informed, like many probably of you relate to this. And it's worrisome, but I think we can't go just like that, because we need these voices, we need these stories. People are still there. I just hope that we won't be, the censorship, like it seems that we are seeing, maybe like, I don't know if we are seeing the fall of Twitter. I just hope that we are not seeing the end of a platform that I feel I found before very democratic, where you can have like, also obviously there are trolls, but where you can have like a lot of like interactions with people with anyone. You can have like 1 million followers and interact with someone with 200 followers and just have a conversation and react and interact, and I think that's very valuable. And I hope, I'm not as optimistic.
Will you personally be paying for verification, and will Radio Ambulante be paying for verification?
I'm not sure if we're gonna do that. I think we're gonna play first with our community and see what's going on. Everything that we have built has been organic. Mm-hmm. We believe in that, and we'll see what the algorithm I'm not sure what's more like, like bipolar, if like the owner of the company or the platform, so I think we'll need to wait and see what happens. I just want everybody to know that we're gonna stay, and we'll see how it goes with our community. I hope we won't lose contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for an amazing hour. I come away speaking to you going, I could speak to you for another hour. So thank you, Carolina. Please try to get a holiday from your holiday. And go
Thank you
well.
so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.